Welcome back to New Rockstars, I'm Erik Voss, and She-Hulk Episode 1 sets a high bar to clear as it introduces to the MCU, in many ways, the most challenging VFX character to pull off, especially amidst a time when Marvel Studios' approach to VFX artistry is being critiqued. But now that the first episode is here, I would say it mostly sticks the landing, thanks largely to Tatiana Maslany's charisma, her chemistry with Mark Ruffalo as her cousin Bruce Banner, and when you break down the visuals of this episode closely, some really clever camera work by the director Kat Coiro and a team of talented VFX artists working in tandem to pull off this illusion. So let's go back through this episode to discuss these visual maneuvers, how they manipulate the psychology of the viewer, and how well each of them work. It's not all of them do, but that's okay. We're still grateful to have shows with green characters to talk about. She-Hulk Episode 1 starts with Jen Walters practicing a closing argument, then flashes back to her getting her powers. Actually, head writer Jessica Gao revealed to Variety that most of this pilot flashback was going to be in Episode 8, but they decided late in the process to move up Jen's origin story earlier in the season. Gao said that led them to have to cut around and remove many shots of Jen hulking out in Episode 1 because there was now no way for the VFX artist to finish those shots in time. While this change leads to some oddly edited action with She-Hulk in this episode, it's pretty cool to find all the clever ways that they worked around it. Like, notice the prominence of the color green in the set design for the first 5 minutes. The walls of Jen's office are a pale green, the lush wooded area they drive through, and the color of her car, so that when she takes in Bruce's blood, we initially see her vague reflection in the dented green car door, forming a kind of green colored funhouse mirror to mask her actual physical transformation. But the first close-up we get of Jen as She-Hulk comes when she hulks out on those skeevy guys outside the bar. This is an incredibly tightly edited 7 seconds. Check it out.
Oh, what? You too good to talk to us?
Yeah, notice how we hardly have any time to take in Jen's new superpowered form, which is just unusual for this genre. Whenever Marvel reveals their new heroes for the first time, they love to slow things down and just take their time, like the mighty Thor, Jane Foster in Love and Thunder, Moon Knight in the bathroom in Episode 1, Sam Wilson as the new Captain America in the season finale of The Falcon Winter Soldier. Even Kamala Khan got kind of a slow motion leap with her embiggened hand in her first episode, but here it's like, no, don't look. It's barely 2 seconds before Jen gets tackled. And by the way, she gets tackled by Hulk. Even that happens so fast, it's hard to tell that it is Hulk tackling her. But that said, the brief frames we do see of Jen, the VFX artist did a really good job with her face. Her brow is furrowed in rage, little wrinkles over her nose, her head is sweaty. There has been a ton of talk about She-Hulk's appearance, her face, her height, the musculature of her form. The director Kat Coiro told Screen Rant that unlike Hulk, a character who can look like a monster, She-Hulk has to fit into the human world. She goes on dates, she goes to work. To pull off creating this character in this physical space, they used a stand-in, Malia Araya, who is 6'7", and when it came to She-Hulk's silhouette, instead of looking at bodybuilders, they based her on slimmer, yet still super strong Olympian athletes and ballet dancer Misty Copeland. But there's an added challenge with the creation of She-Hulk's face. Actors like Mark Ruffalo and Josh Brolin have heavy jawlines and just very specific facial features that allow them to be mapped onto a non-human skull and still retain the essence of their facial performance. But with She-Hulk, Jennifer Walters can't look like a Cro-Magnon. She must retain Tatiana Maslany's attractive physical features. And this challenge is compounded by viewers like us being so accustomed to seeing female characters on screen wearing foundation and makeup, smoother surfaces, which is a huge problem when you consider that VFX artists tend to rely on those kind of imperfections, blemishes, bumps, wrinkles, and stubble to heighten the photorealism. It's really hard to make just a smooth surface look photorealistic. But again, in this episode, they work around it in some really interesting ways. In Bruce's basement lab, they just nail the eyeline with Tatiana Maslany looking up so high at Hulk so that she just looks like his kid sister, until this one moment when Jen begins to hyperventilate and Bruce lowers to her level, making us think that Jen is about to Hulk out in size, but really this is just the setup to the cut to joke of her just being hungry. And during this scene, they have a really good mix of practical props and VFX with Hulk's binder, his massive fingers flipping through its pages, making this binder a kind of visual metaphor for the burden of being a Hulk. For Bruce, this thick binder is really just a small flip book. As for him, his self-actualization is complete, but from Jen's perspective, it is a massive stack of paperwork. Even for a lawyer, one of the biggest binders she's ever seen, representing how this coming transition is a major shift for her. Now later, when Bruce realizes Jen does not have an alter ego, he tears out that whole first section of the binder that you'll notice is labeled alter ego, showing how Jen is already making this burdensome token smaller and more digestible for her. But one of the fun things about the fantasy shows are the swords. Bruce. Everybody's got a cool sword, and it's their sword, and it's sharper than everything else, and it cuts stuff real good. Even the Iron Throne is just a big old pile of swords. Swords are cool, but for me, swords don't really work well with my daily routine. I don't have that many foes to slay, and I don't want to worry about beheading myself when I shave.
Still sharp.
Just a lot easier to use a razor from Harry's. If you're not already a Harry's guy, you oughta be. And the easiest way to get started is the starter kit. It all comes in one of these packages. Here's a razor. So the Harry's starter set comes with a 5-blade German engineered razor cartridge, a beautifully textured handle, some shave gel with aloe, and a travel cover for those times you just gotta shave on the go and you don't want your razor to accidentally go to war against your toothbrush in your travel bag. For me, the difference is in the details. The handle's just got a good weight to it, and it just feels like it was built to fit my hand, forged for me. Also, these blades are sharp, and there are 5 of them, so you're just not gonna find any stray bits of stubble after you leave the house. And thanks to the aloe in this shave gel, your face will feel smooth and soft when you are done. And when it's time for a new blade, you can order new blades from harrys.com for as little as $2, so you can stay groomed without breaking the bank. Harry's starter set is normally $13, but if you click the link in the description or go to harrys.com/newrockstars, you can get it for only $3. So what are you waiting for? Put down your sword and pick up a razor from Harry's instead. Now, when Bruce has put Jen in that torture chamber, notice how we see her reflection smaller, framed within Hulk's larger form through the glass. Why do they do this? Well, it's because the editing of the sequence again cuts around Jen's actual transformation. We never really see it. We just see her green hand suddenly flattening those saws, and then we see her from behind as she smashes through the door. But since we had that critical before shot, we now have this nice contrast with her matching Hulk in height now, so that her brain just kind of fills in the difference. Now, this moment in the lab is really the first extended looks we get of Jen's hulked out form in close-up. And notice how these shots are at their best when they simply recreate subtle physical choices that Tatiana Maslany makes. For example,
yeah, it kind of seems like I'm done here.
Not so fast.
yeah, notice her bored grimace and the awkward fist tap. The more specific of physical choices and gestures that the actor makes, the more specific of a reference that the animators have, and the more lifelike the final product comes off. There's an even subtler moment here.
Fine. Teach me how to Hulk, please.
Yeah, Maslany does this subtle flutter of her eyelid, like someone having an angry tick. It's just a perfect way of showing how this character is using her simmering frustration to fuel her ability to stay big and green right now. Now, the next morning are just a few really good examples of VFX interacting with the physical environment to make it all feel seamless. Like, notice how when Jen is hungover, Bruce pats her head, his VFX hand moves her physical hair, and she says, ow.
Ow.
Which is a fun joke because she's saying ow, both because she's hungover, and as gentle as Bruce was with Buzzball, he still hurt her. Also, I love this. When Jen tries to leave and goes to the garage, her shorter height allows her to pass under the blinds, but in this same shot, Hulk Bruce has to lift them up, and in doing so, he knocks the blinds askew. You probably noticed how Jen also has to move the seat up way closer to the steering wheel and sit on her bag to give herself a boost, since of course this Jeep would be customized for Hulk's size. I also like how it is completely covered in mud, because as we saw when Bruce got a ride into New Asgard in Endgame, he weighs down vehicles and likely causes this Jeep to kick up more mud than it normally would. And as Jen tries to run him over, there's another good example of Maslany in a reflection over Bruce's face. Notice how it's her eyes in the rear view mirror directly over Hulk's face. Little detail here, as they fight, Jen's thunderclaps look like a sonic cannon, like the kind that was designed by Stark Tech in the 2008 Hulk film, One Thing Known to Slow Down or Subdue the Hulk. Now, there is a moment after they hug it out that's a little awkward. Notice how Jen leaves her arms outstretched just a little too long, suggesting that they might have directed Tatiana Maslany to pantomime hugging giant shoulders, but of course the actor wouldn't have had a reference for how long to leave her arms up.
I'm not sure what to do with my hand.
Like, it's not that big of a deal, and really I think we can chalk it up to this just being an attorney and a competitive cousin who would be a bad hugger. Now, the final duel with Titania in the courtroom I think might suffer the most from this episode not having enough shots of She-Hulk to work with, because really it feels like an edited montage of a fight than an actual movie fight. We get these chaotic back-to-back shots of Jen and Titania throwing desks without those characters really being anywhere near desks in the shots before. A desk falls on Titania, but we never see her crawl out from under that desk. Just a shot of her randomly leaping into a jump kick, a kick that must miss Jen completely because Jen does not even have to step to the side or turn even to punch Titania across the room. So yeah, but hey, considering they had to completely reconstruct this pilot episode, I have to hand it to the full creative team for coming up with such an enjoyable introduction to the newest Avenger of the MCU MCU. And finally, someone who can match the Hulk in strength. Tatiana Maslany is just a natural superhero, and I cannot wait to see her join the others to take on Kang and all the other threats of the MCU, and of course to watch the next 8 episodes. You can follow me on Instagram and Twitter at Erik Voss. Follow new Rockstars for more of my visual analysis that probably looks into the details too closely, but you love it. Thanks for watching. Bye.